Ho, ho, ho? No. I could be Santa's elf.
Oh, 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 oh! I'm Santa's elf, and I welcome you.
No. Okay. Hello, dear listener, and welcome to Cellulose Free. My name is Colin, and with me, as always, is my fellow film watcher elf and co-host and thing, Thomas.
Hi, hello.
You're about as ready as I am.
Yep.
What you been up to?
Okay, so, earlier today, I went and got my eyes tested, and what the optometrist told me was that the results were boring, because they were as close to exactly the same as the ones taken 2 years ago as you could possibly get.
Good. So, you save us some money by not having to replace your glasses.
Well, no, I've wasted money by not getting glasses.
Yes, but our health cover would have paid you for a basic set of glasses, but you like to have the tinting and the high-speed muffler bearings and things like that, so it still would have cost us money. Anyway, what else have you been up to?
Advent of Code has continued on.
And aren't you loving it?
I am having a bad day about it today.
Oh, if only you knew, dear listener.
I had attempted to implement an optimization for today, day 15's second puzzle, and I seem to have made my program slower in the process.
Good.
Did that just before we went live here.
So is that what made you delay our recording? You suddenly had a brainwave that makes absolutely everything better?
Some of it... No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
The slower version is still chugging away over in my room.
Good.
And it might be finished in a couple of hours once we wrap here, but I doubt it.
Right.
I should have just ran the old code. It would have worked. But yeah, done a bunch of things this week, most of which haven't taken well over 3 hours to do. Most of which have taken well under half an hour to do. Today has not been good for me.
However, you did find time in the frustration and the struggle to add a couple of your Christmas tree decorations to our mighty fine, ultra-thin Christmas tree.
It's certainly thin.
It's very narrow.
Yep.
Yes. We only have a very small communal living area.
a small average per person communal living area.
Yes. So space is at a premium, so Wendy went and ordered a narrow Christmas tree that arrived today. So it's very narrow. It's possibly 6 feet tall. Then we managed to wrap 50 metres of Christmas lights around it.
Yep, all of them are on there.
So it can now be seen from the International Space Station.
You thought it would be a problem when you started.
Well, look,
and then
this string of lights stretched way up the hallway and back. And we thought, no, this isn't going to fit. And Wendy says, yes, it will.
And then by the power of things going round and round taking up less space, it didn't take up that much space.
No. And when I think about the large clump of lights as it was wrapped, it should have made more sense to me. But once it was stretched out, it just looked way too long. Anyway, so we've finally, apart from the blip of last week's podcast where we got into the quote-unquote Christmas spirit, that's really been our only other foray into fa-la-la-la-la-ing. But we're going to make up for that, aren't we?
Well, I don't know about making up for it, but we're going to do something.
Yes. As for my week, I had my eyes checked too. And I also dangerously opened up an online bank account, as in a bank that doesn't have a bricks and mortar store. And it went off to a very bad start. You know, you're meant to provide ID.
Yep.
And so I'm typing in this ID that is more automatically meant to check the lists and check it twice. And it did check it twice and couldn't come up with me existing. So I had to then find other ID and go about it the old-fashioned way and get someone to make a copy of that ID and have someone sign it and then email that image of that signed piece of paper, which then promptly got lost as far as I can tell, because no one got back to me and no one got... Well, I finally bit the bullet, and you know how I am with making telephone calls. I finally made a telephone call and was on the phone for 50 minutes before someone answered. And I go, this is not good. This is not good. 50 minutes of just the one piece of hold music on a loop. But I did finally get through to someone who was extremely polite and helpful and found the image that had slipped under a filing cabinet, a virtual filing cabinet, and said they will be on it straight away in the morning, because it was 6 o'clock in Sydney. It is an Australian bank, and I was speaking to a local and said, look, I'm awfully sorry, but they'll be on it right away. Well, that account is finally open and I can move on. I need to shift some money from one account to this new account that has... I did a lot of research and found that this offered a quite reasonable interest rate, which is pretty much non-existent with savings accounts these days. Speaking of interest rates, I suspect our dear listener has no interest. So let's just move on. We have a film to watch that I'm so excited about.
So retention, right? Viewer retention.
Right.
We have Anchor, which throws stuff out to all sorts of podcast aggregators and doesn't give us any retention statistics.
No.
At all.
We have no idea. I guess it's probably hard with podcasts.
It is difficult, yes. And then we have YouTube, which doesn't get enough views for us to get any viewer retention statistics out of it. So... don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who is listening to which bits.
We have a vague idea of how many people download a podcast each week on Anchor, because a lot of people have their podcast software that just grabs it as soon as it comes. So it can't tell us whether someone actually listens to it, just that they downloaded
I know
it.
How much of it people are listening to, I just don't know where.
With YouTube, yes, you can tell that. I suspect it's not 100%.
No, it's not.
No.
I assure you it is not 100%.
And I don't blame you, dear listener. Are you there? Hello?
We have a film.
We do. I think we're putting it off. You picked this.
I did.
I would just like to say, for our final episode of the year, I thought I'm building things up. I picked a classic... in It's a Wonderful Life last week, and then thought you can one-up that. I gave you the opportunity. Final episode of the year. And what do you throw at us?
Well, I sort of went sideways.
Sideways?
Into something in the same vein,
right.
Theme-wise.
With 100% more hand puppets.
Quality-wise, we'll see. This film is... It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie. That is the full title of the film.
Is the description any longer?
It is longer.
Right.
It is longer than that. And I'm going to read it.
Good.
I'm really frazzled.
Oh yeah. We're buzzed here.
It's the year finale.
We're doomed, I say, doomed.
'Tis the night before Christmas, and the Muppet Theatre is in danger of being torn down. And when bad goes to worse, Kermit begins to believe the world would be a better place if he'd never been born. But don't worry, with heavenly help and hilarious send-ups of just about every holiday movie ever made, Kermit and the Muppets discover what matters most is their love for each other.
Hilarious. So we're in for an hilarious treat. Thomas is going to put the disc into the machine. Oh, you've already done that.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, we're just going to hit the play button, watch this movie, and then we'll catch you on the flip side.
turned to side B. Again.
Oh, I wish I'd never been born. Mongrel. So, what did you think?
So, at the end of the last episode, even though it was entirely my fault,
It was your fault.
we were sort of bemoaning that we were going to go through with this.
Yes.
It's not as terrible as we made it out to be. It's not good.
Right.
This is not a good film.
No.
But it's not as breathtakingly bad as last week's episode may have led you to believe.
It's pretty bad.
It is pretty bad.
I think that I appreciated more the fact that this was a made-for-television production. So its budget was probably very, very short. Mm-hmm. And I think they got their money's worth.
Yeah.
It was filmed very, very well.
Yep.
The colours were crisp and it looked wonderful. But it's such a Jekyll and Hyde film. It's got some moments of wonder. Mm-hmm. The single song, I guess, really. It actually has that bit of Christmas joy.
Yes.
But it's surrounded very much by some creepy nastiness and uncomfortable unpleasantness that, yes, the Muppets have sort of delved into walking the line of adult humour territory, but there was some bits in this that were just smutty and felt icky, I guess.
Yeah. And if it's not that, then it's jokes that don't work 3/4 of the time.
Yep. And shoehorning as many, and that is also traditional of the latter Muppet movies, was getting as many big names in here. Well, apart from Whoopi Goldberg, really, you've got the cast of Scrubs.
Yes.
So it was very, very much of its time, which I guess can be also said of the big movies, but this was a telly movie with telly show stars, big names that a lot of them are forgotten, and I don't know, it aimed big and it got big, but big wasn't necessarily better. It's flat in so many places and unpleasant in so many places. And
laying on thick those celebrity cameos is definitely a feature of Muppet movies going forward.
Yeah, and maybe I'm being too harsh there as well, in that I was never a Scrubs fan, and there were also other cameos in there that I just didn't recognise. And so perhaps I was the wrong audience for it to begin with, but I don't know.
Okay, would you like to hear about David Arquette, who played Danielle in this film?
One of the many Arquettes.
A professional wrestler.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh.
Retired earlier this year, but was a professional wrestler for some years.
Huh.
Had the World Championship Wrestling Heavyweight Championship when there was a World Championship Wrestling.
Good grief. Was that after this?
No, this was shortly
was
before this.
Sorry, is he one of the Arquettes? The
yes,
family
yes,
of actors?
He is one of the Arquettes, yes.
Right, okay. My goodness. That is quite bizarre.
Yeah.
One in a long line, though, of wrestlers turned actors, I guess. And he did a reasonable job. Oh, sorry, that was a loaded statement. He did a reasonable job. He had a difficult job, but I think the main thing that made me say he did a reasonable job was that he actually knew how to maintain eye contact with a Muppet. And my understanding is that can be very, very hard for a professional actor to do.
The actor is down there.
The actor is down there. Eyes up here. His interaction was believable, unlike the Steve Irwin wannabe. Why?
There are some parodies in this film that don't quite work, but this one especially doesn't work because it has nothing to do with Christmas.
No, and okay, if they'd got Steve Irwin to do it, but I can't remember timelines as to. So this was 2002.
This was shot in 2001.
Okay.
It
I can't remember when Steve Irwin. They wouldn't have parried him if he wasn't.
2006.
Yeah. Okay. If they'd got him, okay, maybe it would have worked, but it was just appalling. It was really, really bad.
Now, here is a completely out of the blue thing that I read on the Wikipedia page, and it's astonishing. So, I said this was filmed in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
This was filmed in early 2001 and released in 2002, near the end of 2002. So first of all, wild, huge gap between production and post-production wrapping up and actually putting it out there.
Yeah.
The Twin Towers are visible in this film.
Oh, okay.
Which is wild, and some people have joked about Kermit being responsible for 9/11.
Oh no!
But, yeah, but that's a strange thing to happen.
Yeah, I didn't see it, so it must have been
wasn't
just
paying attention. But
sort of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shot pre 9/11 and released over a year later.
Right.
Which is a wild production schedule, but
yeah,
go off.
They got Mel Brooks, who has had a long-standing interaction with the Muppets. If you don't recall, he's the scientist who attempts to perform a cerebrectomy on Kermit in the first Muppet movie.
No, I don't recall.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I think he has been in other ones as well, but he voiced the snowman narrator, who wasn't the narrator. That was pretty cool, but it was just a jumble. And again, it is the nature of the variability of how well the Muppets can maintain a movie that also maintains the Muppet show, I guess, structure. In that a whole bunch of skits, throw them at the wall and hope that some of them stick and join up together to form a story. I'm still feeling in pain a bit, but less possibly than I was dreading this. There are certainly some redeeming features in it, but very few and far between.
Here's some more interesting information. First of all, it's a Muppet film not currently owned by Disney.
Yep.
It's still under the auspices of NBC Universal. It's also the last Muppet film produced by the Jim Henson Company before the Muppets were bought up by Disney.
Right. But again, it wasn't a theatrical release either. So it was that realisation that makes me, I guess, a little more forgiving of it. But, yeah, I'm still pretty miserable. I guess getting back to you've got some other snippets there, but it I rightly or wrongly think that possibly the strongest two Muppet movies would be Muppet Treasure Island, which has a story structure already there, and they nailed it. Their take on it. And they also did it with Muppet Christmas Carol. It, in my opinion, is one of the best film versions of A Muppet Christmas Carol, which is ridiculous on paper, but it has the heart and soul of the story concept. And again, relying very heavily on a star performance there in both of those films.
Yes.
Tim Curry and
Michael Caine.
But just one main character. Sorry, that's a bit unfair on the guy who played Jim Hawkins, because I think that film very much benefited from, and I can't remember the guy's name. I used to know the actor who went on to have a comedy show on British TV, who got treated terribly in the release of that film by, I'm not sure who to blame, but very little mention of him, but a pivotal character in that film.
Kevin Bishop,
yep. But both of those films had the underpinnings already there, and it was their take on it. Whereas this thing, it risks very, very, very heavily on It's a Wonderful Life, but possibly got all of the things that film didn't quite get right. The pacing in places of It's a Wonderful Life gets slow, and it happens when the angel appears, and it happened here. Did you feel that as well?
Maybe.
It sort of hit a stop and then ramps up again. I carefully avoid the Muppet movie, the thing that started their theatrical release style. I absolutely love that film, but I think a lot of that is pure nostalgia rather than it being an incredibly well-made film. It is very thin in places, but also beautiful in places. It still has that innocence. I hate using that word with the Muppets because they still are walking a line of entertaining as wide an audience as possible. And that certainly happens. You know, the concept of eating frogs' legs is pretty ghastly. I love the Muppet movie very much so, but I think a lot of that is nostalgia's sake. I still feel the feelings that I had when I sat in the cinema for the first time watching that. And the whole hype with the songs, you know, the Rainbow Connection. Having a deaf choir attend our high school and perform Rainbow Connection using Australian Sign Language. It's got all of these sort of memories connected to it. Sorry, I've sort of wandered off crazily there.
In films that we might get to at some point, we'll probably get to the Muppet movie.
Yes.
We might get to The Muppets, which is an interesting one to bring up.
Because it's the film that we just watched.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
The Muppets Wiki over on Fandom has a article dedicated solely to similarities between this film and 2012's The Muppets.
Right, yeah.
26 points of similarity it lists, including that Whoopi Goldberg appears in both.
So this is basically the equivalent of the film that we watched today, a very merry Muppet Christmas movie, is to Star Wars A New Hope, as The Muppets is to Star Wars The Force Awakens.
Except that there's more of a quality disparity with The Muppets.
I very, very much need to watch The Muppets again because I really don't have any strong memories of it.
No, The Muppets again is The Muppets Most Wanted.
Oh, sorry. No, leave me alone.
Spoilers for that joke that's at the start of that film.
Indeed.
Apart from all that, I do have a couple of notes.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'll see. There were a couple of times where I thought, I really should make a note of that.
In the Fozzie running the money segment, which is playing off Billy running the money in It's a Wonderful Life, at the very end of that, after he's been through all of the lasers, he puts the bag down and Bitterman empties the bag, and for the longest time I had been operating under the memory that the clock that she turns around to face Fozzie was in the bag, but no, it was on her desk. It was just a clock on her desk the whole time.
Oh, good grief, you thought that, did you?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Well, at least that was what was in my memory as having happened. But it's clearly one that's been on her desk the whole time because it has the Bitterman logo across the top of it.
During that scene, the thought that I was having is, I'm loving the smoke coming off and out of Fozzie. There was actually a spot where definitely there was smoke being pumped into where the poor Muppet operator's hand would have been. It was also filling with smoke, allowing it to seep out. But there was one particular hole that very much seeped out this smoke from Fozzie's head. So, yes, that scene had an effect on me for other reasons.
Right.
Yes.
The boss's infinite stack of records is a good joke.
Yes.
Performing miracles for dummies is a good joke.
Yep.
There's some good jokes between the boss and Danielle.
And very much in those scenes, Whoopi Goldberg can very easily fall into the trap of just phoning it in. And she didn't do that here.
No.
And my recollection was that she did. But I think she did a decent job of carrying those scenes.
Corporate synergy. Kermit lifts his foot up and there's the NBC logo. The Muppets really like to bite the hand that feeds them from time to time, don't they?
Absolutely.
You Not Being Born has transformed 90% of network television into reality shows. Which...
That is frightening, isn't it?
Which sounds like a terrible, terrible thing to have happened, and that has definitely happened here in Australia.
Oh, yep. I don't know how it is in the rest of the world, but the government
makes quotas.
Makes quotas for Australian-produced television production. And those requirements of what that actually needs to be has been whittled away and whittled away and whittled away. We used to have such a wonderful children's television production on multiple stations.
TV Tonight, which is a blog that does all sorts of content on Australian television, put out an article earlier today which says that between last year and this year, the government did a bunch of things with quotas in the past year because of the pandemic. Children's content on Australian television has halved in the last year.
Our animation studios have been decimated because there was a lot of Australian children's animation being done, and some very good work.
And the ones that haven't been decimated are doing contract work for Hollywood movies.
Yeah. Sorry, as I interrupted you, where you were heading was that those quotas have been very much taken up. Right, it's got to be Australian-produced content. Let's do some more...
It's cheap. We can do it for cheap.
Yeah.
We can give what looks like big prizes.
Reality.
But the rest...
Television.
Very cheap.
Reality.
And well over half of it is relationship shows. Exploitative relationship shows at that.
Yeah.
It's...
and the vibe that I get is that it's pretty much a worldwide thing now. Is that, okay, this is cheap to make, people watch it for some reason, and so we'll keep making it. Yeah. Because it gets the advertising dollars, but it's not costing us huge amounts of money to make.
Drama's expensive, apparently.
Yeah.
And finally, let's poke holes in this bad movie. So Kermit hasn't been born, but the Muppet movie is canonical, because we have Hopper's frog legs.
Yes, yep.
And so none of the Muppets should be anywhere near this town, because they were scattershot all over the US.
Yes. Yeah,
why
they all
are they
ended
all
up
here?
Yes.
Here in a pre-9/11 New York.
I cannot explain it. Yeah, because that whole road trip brought them all there.
First of all, they all get taken to Los Angeles, and then they take Manhattan.
They want to go to Hollywood.
And that, I think, other than noting that back in the Fozzie sequence, that hard of hearing joke is bad.
Yes.
That's not just a bad joke, that is a bad joke. It's a joke you shouldn't do.
No. And I think that gets back to the sliminess and it is so not politically correct. There are so many things that they could not do or wouldn't choose to do even that are in here. Making fun of accents and making fun of disabled people and the blatant sexism as well. It's just weird how,
That's everything.
That is everything.
That's all I've got.
Okay.
If you've got nothing else...
I've got nothing else.
Great. We can't recommend this film.
No, and
it's
when it comes down to it, people are unlikely to be able to watch it anyway. So
it's an interesting case study.
Who chose this film?
I did, because it was I thought it was going to be an interesting case study, and it was.
Yeah, it was. It was. But we only barely touched on its a Wonderful Life underpinnings. which were very, very thick. It was slathered on hard. They shouldn't have bothered.
Slathered on hard, but coated in everything else.
Yeah.
I should say, I have picked a bad movie here, and I will do it again if I think it will make for an interesting podcast.
Oh, them's fighting words.
Anyway.
All right, well, let's move on then.
The following segment is sitting on my head. Please get off my head.
What have we got?
Here we are in the Untitled segment. Entwas Frashu.
Hi there.
Yes, you can expect very deep lore from this non-fiction podcast. Thank you for your love for the seasonally appropriate theme, which I did up in a few hours. Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad it got acknowledged because I loved it. When out of the blue I got sent the file and pressed play, I thought, that's cool.
The only inkling you would have had of it before I sent you the file was me coming into this room and saying, okay, so I have my door open, my digital audio workstation open, and I've been arranging some things in MuseScore and porting the MIDI over, and I haven't put in any of the instruments yet except for sleigh bells.
That's right.
And because I've put the sleigh bells in, yes, all the instruments are sleigh bells.
100% more sleigh bell.
Yeah. Entwas Fratu also says that your Jimmy Stewart is better than your Santa.
Oh, ouch. Oh, that's really hard. I'm very, very rusty at both.
As far as talking about last week's movie...
Hang on, can I just go back and qualify something here? I guess it's Christmas time, so I can get slightly religious here. I served a Mormon mission for 2 years, which was an experience in and of itself, but I was a bit of a... Which is... And this story gets really odd because I have a real aversion to using telephones. Mm-hmm. But because of some of the things that I had to do on my mission, there was a lot of using telephones, calling other missionaries to find out how they're going and what they need and things like that. So I'd use the telephone quite a bit. And occasionally I would put on an impersonation of the person who was in charge of this mission. He was called the mission president. And I actually did a fairly good impersonation of him. Enough that it would throw these other missionaries on the phone as to, okay, President, and yes, I got into a bit of trouble, but I was quite notorious for my presidential impersonation. The reason I mention this is that he sounded quite a bit like Jimmy Stewart.
Right.
So... What you were hearing last week is this hybrid, I guess, of my Jimmy Stewart, President Nash, who passed away earlier this year. No, the last 2 years are very, very muddy. What you were hearing last week was this hideous hybrid of me getting impersonations really badly messed up. So
right.
As for my Santa, that's heavily based on... No, I don't.
That's heavily based on stereotype.
Yes. And I should point out, it freaked the cat out whenever I do a ho, 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 the cat runs a mile. So, anyway.
As far as the actual movie, Entwas Fratu says that he doesn't think he's ever seen It's a Wonderful Life all the way through, because it is quite a long movie.
It is quite a long movie. Yeah.
Entwas Fratu continues. The movie that was on TV constantly and got watched all the way through when he was growing up, and we'll probably get to this some year.
Oh, hang on. Let me guess, because I have not seen... Did you send me this?
I did send you this.
So, see, none of this is... The problem is... All of this week, I should warn you, my wife does not have her own Facebook account or Messenger account.
Yep.
And suddenly she's got various responsibilities that people send messages to her via my Facebook Messenger. And so if she opens them up, yeah,
that would do it.
I'm not saying that, yeah. It's not a very private, and we're familiar with this. We don't hold private conversations or anything like that on Messenger. But I suspect that's what has happened.
Right.
She's opened up Messenger. It's registered that it's been seen, and then I haven't seen it.
Well then.
So this is all new, but I'm going to guess A Christmas Story.
A Christmas Story.
Oh.
A film that we will get to one of these
You'll
years.
shoot your eye out.
That is what Entuos Frashu says immediately following.
Oh, dear. Okay, whilst we're on the theme of being on missions, another insight into the weird world of Mormon missions. For those 2 years, you don't go to the cinema. You don't watch television. You're meant to be devoted to all of this missionary work. At Christmas time, people tend to be very accommodating with inviting missionaries to Christmas dinners because you're away from your families and things like that. And so you're invited to these big family gatherings and you've got kids in the background who are watching television, and you try to avoid those things, but that is the very first time I was exposed to A Christmas Story.
Right.
And I was absolutely fascinated. I thought, wow. And it was something that I tracked down as soon as I got home. Because I hadn't seen it before. I can't remember what year it came out.
1983.
83. Yeah, so I was first exposed to it because I don't think it was I don't know whether it got a theatrical release here or not, but it certainly was being shown on television at Christmas time in 1988. So that was my first exposure to it. Small glances of it, or long. All right, I will confess, I saw most of it. Yes, sitting stuffed full of Christmas dinner. Yeah, I love it. Definitely on the shelf.
Yes, and something for another year.
Yes.
That's about it.
Okay.
Actually.
Cool. Well, thank you for that input for our final episode of the year. We're grateful for everybody's input throughout the year, and it's been great to respond to.
You have provided additional editing work.
You have. Oh, this is getting hideously long too. All right then. So we'll move on.
Pick a film for next week so we can go to bed.
So it is your turn.
Right, it is.
But you do have an option here.
Do I?
It's the end of the year.
It is.
You could leave us on a cliffhanger.
I could, but we could lose audience.
Oh.
Yeah.
And also the cliffhanger will be immediately resolved by the title of the next episode.
Indeed. So, no, look, I'm going to randomly grab something that may change.
It's going to be 3 long weeks between now and our next recording.
Long weeks.
Which is to say we will miss the next 2 weeks, and then at the end of the 3rd week, we will record.
Yeah. And I should also point out that we've had a production meeting and we've decided to swap roles. Thomas is going to be editing this every week, and I'm going to get a MIDI keyboard out and come up with tunes and do the cover art. So I'm glad that we had that meeting.
Yeah, that meeting that happened before now.
Yes, it was a good meeting.
Yep.
A goodly meeting.
This is definitely a premeditated joke. And definitely was not planned in advance.
I just came up with it then.
Sorry, definitely what... was premeditated, wasn't planned in advance. What?
I'm confused.
I'm frazzled.
Yeah, so am I. We need to wrap up.
Yeah.
So let's where's the flag that I'm looking for? Okay, so I'm going to cut all of that out. I'm going to select a film that will be the film that we will watch in the new year. So it'll keep you on the edge of your seat waiting for this incredible episode. I'm giving my phone a shake. Okay. No, I'm not going to take that one.
Oh.
Yeah, well, it's in one of those categories that you don't seem to get much out of.
Which feels like a weak premiere.
Yeah. No, not that one either. All right.
Are you realising that a lot of your list is...
No. There's a whole heap of things that are influencing that we do want a good season opener.
Mm.
Okay. This film was released in 1985.
Okay. So before I was born.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
It stars Jonathan Pryce.
Okay.
Have you watched Tales from the Loop?
I've watched a bit of it.
Okay.
I should get back to it at some point.
All right. Well, that's not very helpful then. It's the older guy in that, but he wasn't as old.
Okay. well, then it's not helpful, is it?
Okay. It is directed by Terry Gilliam.
Okay. That narrows things
down. It does,
down.
yeah, which I was going to try and avoid to do.
Which means that we're going to watch a film with production woes.
Oh, yeah. All right. So, this is the description.
Uh-huh.
It's only a state of mind. Jonathan Pryce stars as Sam Lowry in this surrealistic spectacle about a daydreaming bureaucrat trapped in a future dystopia where love is forbidden from interfering with efficiency.
Buzz?
Hmm?
Is this Brazil?
It is indeed Brazil. I will go on with the description. But with the help of an underground superhero, Robert De Niro, and a beautiful mystery woman, Kim Greist, Sam learns to soar to freedom on the wings of his untamed imagination, or so he thinks. Acclaimed filmmaker Terry Gilliam directs with an acerbic wit and poet's eye that dazzles like never before in glorious high definition.
Because this is a film that you have upgraded to Blu-ray.
It is indeed. So, Brazil.
Brazil?
Could be fun.
I believe this is a double listing, as in it is on both our lists.
It is indeed. I want to revisit, and you have marked as interested.
Because I've not seen it.
Which I figured will make for a good New Year's opening. Speaking of New Year's opening, we hope lots of people attend, including all of our dear listeners. And until then, we hope that you all have a merry festive season, that you are safe, and you get to, I don't know. This is all going hideously bad.
It was going so well.
It was, wasn't it? And that...
Have a safe and happy season.
But until then, we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
You have been listening to Cellulose Free. Your hosts were Colin, who produces and edits the show, and Thomas, who makes the artwork and music. Cellulose Free is recorded in the Deranged Cat Studios in scenic Tasmania, Australia. We keep track of our extensive physical media collection through My Movies, which we highly recommend. You can find links to that, as well as other places you can find us, in the show notes. Cellulose Free is a Hi Hello production.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, are you ready?
Sure.
Oh, is that front door open or closed?
Yes.
Good.
Helpful question.
Yeah.
It's closed.
Yeah, I heard. Good. Excellent. Levels.
I closed it.
You did,
It's
I can
closed.
tell. Good, the door's closed.
Yep.
Alright, let's do this. You right?
Yeah.
You still with us?
Yeah.